It is the day of the week that comes before Thursday, my dudes, and you know what that means. It is time once again to revisit Adventure Woods, Planet Coaster series that I'm making. And in today's episode, a little bit less extravagant than the previous episodes, we're going to be building a food court. And I say that, and actually, last episode was predominantly focused on the construction of a food court as well. But regardless, I'm going to press on. I'm actually pretty happy with how this food court came out. So, yes, get yourself hyped up for a really exciting, however many minutes, probably about 20 minutes if, the last few episodes timing is anything to go by, about 20 minutes of excitement, burger shop building, picnic benches. What more could one ask for? I mentioned, I can't remember if it was last episode, but I feel like it was, when I mentioned I built that helion ring that you might intermittently see flash up on screen whilst I'm building this part of the park here. But when I was building the path, there's the helion ring, but while I was building the path edges of the path that, goes around the helion ring, there was a bit of an awkward angle to the path, and there was no scenery piece, well, actually, that's not quite true. But the scenery pieces I was using to construct the border of the path were a bit too long to be able to adhere to the turn that the path took at that specific point, just to the right of the helion ring. And so I ended up with some of the grass exposed. So I covered up that grass with a beam of wood. I thought that looks weird, so that I extended the beam of wood out to create a sort of ladder pattern on the surface of the path, which then looked, it looked better than having exposed grass, but also looked a bit weird. So I covered it up with picnic benches, but I was like, well, I need to somehow justify the existence of these picnic benches, right? Because why would they just be here? So enter the building that I'm building right now. I'm building a food court here. So really, the entire existence of this food court structure was really because of the fact I was trying to mask the fact that I was struggling to cover up the imperfections with Planet Coaster's path system. So there you are. Planet Coaster has a terrible path system. Everyone who plays this game will agree. But, sometimes it results in little happy moments like this, where it forces me to, try and think about how to fill in gaps where I can't normally fill them in, and, figure out the implications there, and, build infrastructure around it. And in the end, I think it worked out pretty well. So that's the thesis here. Now, in terms of the actual buildings for the food court itself, I'm going with the panel pieces because I very rarely use the panel pieces, to be fair. I feel like they're generally quite boring. They're very flat and uninteresting, and the textures aren't that interesting. But I thought I'd try and flesh it out a little bit. So I've got these. I'm using these white wooden pieces to build out the some fascias, I guess, for the building, and the actual shop fronts themselves are using that modern wood. And I think overall, it's a pretty nice. It's kind of a bold aesthetic choice, like bold, bright blue. Could potentially look terrible, and maybe you think it does look terrible, but I think it came out all right. For the backstage area, I decided to go with something slightly less garish because this is facing away from the path. And this part of the building here, that's going to be kind of covered up by trees and stuff. So I don't want anything too, again, flamboyant or garish to detract from, the trees. Because I want guests to feel like they're immersed in the middle of a forest when walking around this theme park called Adventure Woods, which, woods is not a synonym for forest, but it's pretty close. It's fairly, I feel like I'm getting bogged down in the minutiae, so to speak. I feel like I'm not seeing the wood for the trees. Yes, I did in fact stumble through that sentence because I thought of that pun, and then, well, not pun, but whatever. Let's move on. Here you can see me building some little sun covers here. These aren't Theme Maker's Toolkit parts, but you might be wondering what they are because I played the footage back too fast for you to maybe be able to see. But I think they're facades from the movie pack, the studios pack, and I basically just took two set facades and smushed them together with the back of each part showing, and it's like the back of those pieces are just smooth matte black, and that's why I built that piece. And you'll probably see this as a recurring theme, that I often build ceilings and floors using the back side of the set pieces from the studios pack. I certainly did that for the flooring and ceiling of the station for Wicked Twister, which is the big yellow coaster, which is the first coaster I built in this theme park all that time ago. What was that, 7 episodes ago? How time flies. I mean, I guess it's easy for me to say that because I've actually recorded the past 7 episodes all in the space of 1 week. I'm still in September, and this is going to be going out in November/December, maybe. This is the 30th of September, so I mean, I guess it's barely September. But I recorded the first commentary of this series on Monday, which was the 19th. No, that can't be right. Maths doesn't add up. I recorded this on the 26th. Or maybe I did. Oh, maybe I did record the first commentary on the 19th, and it's just been that long, and I've been too cowardly to upload an episode. So whatever. I've been smashing out commentaries for episodes for a little while now, because I guess I'm just too scared to publish these videos. So I figure I'm just going to record the commentaries, and I've got a series, and then I'll just never publish it. This was just I'm still kind of on the fence. When I was building this park, I was like, I'm just building this park for myself because I wanted to get into Planet Coaster. But hey, I'll record it because I know there is a small subset of my audience that want to see Planet Coaster. So I'll record it just in case. And now I'm here at the end of the line. I've built the park, finished it. I'm like, wow, now I need to decide what to do with this footage that I now have, of like 100 hours or so of me building a theme park. And I thought, well, let's just make some videos and then just see what happens. I mean, I probably almost certainly will upload these videos to public and make them, publicly available, because I'm a massive narcissist ultimately. So, you probably will end up seeing this. I mean, obviously you're watching this, you are seeing this. Whoa. Meta, crazy. But yeah, that's the train of thought I have here. I mean, is there anything I need to talk about specifically with this food court? I don't think so. I mentioned the sun covers built out of set piece facades. That's it. I mean, one of the challenges, I wanted a little rooftop terrace area here, and there are a couple of challenges associated with this. I like to make sure that every aspect of my park, I guess within reason, but is accessible by wheelchair or otherwise disabled people that can't use staircases. So one aspect that was quite challenging was trying to engineer some sort of elevator shaft into this building that could be realistically believed to be usable elevator shaft for disabled people. That's what I'm kind of building here. This little path going into the building will eventually be the entrance to the disabled access to the roof. And the other difficulty was the fact that this building is not a perfect square, and building anything that isn't a perfect square in Planet Coaster can present its own challenges, especially when building a rooftop terrace, because I wanted this terrace to be, usable by actual guests in the game, like the actual AI guests. And so I had to place an actual functional path here. If I wanted it to just be decorational or ornamental, or I guess those are actually synonyms, aren't they? I would have just used like wooden beams to build the terrace on the top, and just build like fake picnic benches like I have with my staff area so far. But I kind of wanted the park to feel alive when I opened it, because my plan is, and I haven't actually recorded this part of the park's lifespan, I guess, and that is the actual opening. I would like to be able to just see guests enjoying the view. And so to that end, I had to use an actual real path, and paths are very difficult to build. I've already mentioned the path system is a nightmare in this game, so I was left with this kind of curvy path that on the top of this building that didn't really conform to the building edges itself. So I kind of did the best I could to fill out as much empty space as I could, and then I just filled in the gaps with various things, and that's one of the things I'm doing now. I'm covering up the path edges with the scenery with these wooden beams, and you see it took me so long to make that point that I've actually already kind of done the bulk of it. So I've kind of boarded off with the path with these wooden beams all stacked together. And I thought I'd add a little planter, and then behind the planter would be kind of the aircon units and some of the ducting and, cold, hard building logistics that need to exist on a building's roof. So that's the building there. And yes, the other challenge I faced, which I've now done, so you've already seen it, was building an elevator shaft. And I just used those sci-fi pieces. It's a little bit corny. I'm not quite sure if I really like it, but I also cannot be bothered to try and build a better solution. So that's your innings there. You might actually have noticed, and I keep thinking, I need to mention this, and I never do. You might have noticed throughout this series, and you will notice it going forward in this series as well, that I keep placing a little Robin Hood, little scenery piece, like a little archer. The reason I place that, and if you watch any other Planet Coaster builder, you probably see him as well. The reason why that archer is so popular and placed during the building of things is because the archer is very, very, very close or borderline identical to the height of actual in-game guests. So when you're trying to establish scale for buildings or doorways or terraces or elevators for disabled people in this case, the archer is the go-to piece to make sure you're building to scale, because it's hard to sort of get a visual, like when you're building an archway, oh, is this going to be a big archway or small? Is it too small? Is it too big? Place the archer down, you can get a sense of scale, and then you can kind of adjust accordingly. And that's one of the ways in which I and many others realized just how out of scale Planet Coaster scenery is. Like, generally, most things in Planet Coaster are just way oversized. Like, I spend most of my time just, like, placing buildings and building archways, and I'm like, oh, why is it so big? That's what she said. And it's like, it can be a bit of a frustrating process. So I hope that if we ever do get a Planet Coaster 2, and I still remain hopeful, but if we ever do, I hope that we get some buildings with more human scale. I don't know if Planet Zoo had better scaling. I'm not quite sure. I played that game for a bit because there's no way to sugarcoat this, but basically because I'm a massive celebrity, guys, I'm a massive A-lister, I got Planet Zoo for free basically, and I get all the Planet Coaster DLC for free. Hopefully I'm not violating some NDA there, but basically that's the situation. So I did play Planet Zoo for a bit, but I had I've got no real interest in zoos. But I feel like the building pieces, there are a lot more better building pieces. Like, you can build some really nice buildings with the Planet Zoo scenery pieces, and you just can't build the same sorts of buildings in Planet Coaster, which I guess makes sense, right? Planet Coaster was almost like, I don't want to say the beta test of Planet Zoo, but Planet Zoo is basically Planet Coaster, but with you build zoos instead of theme parks. And they could take the feedback from Planet Coaster and see what people are trying to do at Planet Coaster with its crude and rudimentary components, and try and make it easier. So I guess, yeah, I don't know if they addressed the scaling issue, but I hope if we do get a Planet Coaster or a Planet Zoo 2 even, we get some better scaling, really. And because I appreciate that theme parks are meant to be fantastical and all that, and there are oversized scale, larger than life, because you are visiting a fantastical place. At the same time, for some things like raw, functional, no personality structures like a disabled access lift, you kind of want it to just be a normal scale, and it's quite hard to achieve that in Planet Coaster. And I've sort of made a point I've already made in previous episodes, so I feel like that was a good use of my time, wasn't it? Where are we now? Oh, we're actually quite far into this episode. I now glance at my screen for the first time and see that we've pretty much built the food court. I'm now placing this fencing here. There's now going to be a few sort of challenges presented to pass. I mean, I've done it, so this is a past match problem. But yeah, it's like there's a few now awkward gaps between like the pathways and the grass and stuff that I need to try and fill in some sort of creative way. So next episode is going to be filling in the gaps between it's hard for me to talk about this. I mean, I can easily talk about it, but I can't really talk about it whilst the relevant footage isn't on screen, because I feel like it's going to be confusing, because I'm guessing you guys aren't as intimately familiar with this theme park as I am, because I built the thing, But yeah, in between the river and this food court, there's a bit of an awkward patch of land. And next episode's objective is going to be trying to fill that in, basically. So we're going to have some flat rides, some shops. Why am I talking about this? We're still addressing this episode and we're placing trees. So that's the thing. I added this backstage area actually for staff. So in Planet Coaster, there was a really annoying update where staff are just terrible now. I like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 because the staff are not really an issue. You just place a shop and that's it. You just place the shop and the shop just works. In Planet Coaster, that used to be the case. And then there was some update. And then the staff running the shop then just get bored and leave the shop and just wander around complaining. And there's no way to turn that off that I could find. So you kind of have to build staff buildings now just to appease them. And I get that I sound like a capitalist pig. But I'm just saying, in my video games, I just want... And also, like, real theme park staff, if they get disgruntled, they can't just wander off and go for a little walk while the park is full with guests. That ain't going to happen. And that's not how we run things at Lowne Aerospace either. And Lowne Aerospace, of course, is the company that's bankrolling Adventure Woods. I think I mentioned once briefly. And so, yeah, we don't tolerate that here. We have a zero tolerance policy of staff happiness, okay? Staff will be miserable, and they will serve our overlord, me, Matt Lowne. Please, guys, join my Patreon to help me support the great working conditions of this theme park. I do it because of your support. Thank you. And all jokes aside, what are we doing right now? Well, as you can see, guys, we're building some signs. I just like looked at the screen. I was like, aha, I am building this. I was quite proud, actually, that I built a little mister for those palm trees, like a little hose pipe that spreads mist, because those palm trees aren't native to the environment. I thought that was a nice little touch. One thing I am enjoying, actually. Wow, that sounds really narcissistic. I was going to say, one thing I am enjoying when proof watching these videos is the fact that I've left the game unpaused. So for the construction of things like Neptune Park and Velocity Lake and Mirror Lake and Crimson Tower and Mistletoe Peak, I built the park with the game on pause. Because, I don't know, just something inside of me just doesn't like the fact that, it takes so long to build a Planet Coaster Park when it's just you building it. It could take like 50 years to build the park. But I feel like if a real park was going to get built and open, it wouldn't take, 30 or 50 years to be built. It would take like 5 years at most. And that's a big at most statement there. So I never really liked that. And I just couldn't get out my head that little year number in the bottom right hand of the side of the screen. But at the same time, I've done a lot of self-reflecting since I started making Planet Coaster videos. And I've decided, you know what? Nothing really matters, does it? Nothing matters at all. We're all just, on the same rock, slowly spinning its way to damnation, hurtling towards the endless bliss of oblivion. Let's just leave the game unpaused and let the year count spiral out of control. But an upside of that is that in the background of my time lapses, you can kind of see life. I mean, there's no one in the park, but like the roller coasters are moving, flat rides are moving, and it just looks, I don't know, more visually interesting. And I think this series will hopefully be more enjoyable because of that, because, there are going to be times where I'm just faffing around with a fence for 25,000 years. And in the background, when you get bored of that, inevitably, you can just watch a roller coaster go round and round whilst I faff around with whatever it is I'm doing. And that's, and on that note, that's pretty much the food court constructed. I just wanted to do a quick bit of tidying up before wrapping up this episode. There is a nice POV coming up as well, so do not click off just yet. But if you are thinking about clicking off and you've already, closed this video from your full screen, then make sure you've liked and hit subscribe and leave a comment down below. I feel like I should have said this at any point throughout this series. This is the first time I'm pretty sure that I've asked for a like and subscribe throughout this Planet Coaster series, because that's how little engagement I'm expecting from this series. Planet Coaster has always been kind of traditionally the worst performing series on this channel, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I said this in episode 1, in fact. I feel like I did a terrible point illustrating that fact, so watch me completely butcher it once again. I actually kind of like the fact that these videos don't get that many views, because I get a better chance to read all of your comments, and I do enjoy reading comments. That's why I like uploading to my second channel, really. Because again, second channel videos, my second channel's got like 12,000 subscribers, which in the grand scheme of things isn't really that many. And so videos, they usually get about 1,000 views on a good day. But it means I get to respond to every single comment. I get to read every single comment. So if you comment on a Planet Coaster video if you comment on a Planet Coaster video within, let's be reasonable, the first 3 days, I'm definitely going to see it. If it's something that I can think of a reply for, I will reply. If I don't reply, that's not to say I haven't seen it. I just have nothing more to add to the conversation. I usually wrap up building builds, by the way, with the construction of lamps. I just set the in-game time to be at night, just so I can get the lighting all figured out. I used to never bother, and then it came to finishing the park, and then I turned the in-game lighting to nighttime, and the entire park is in pitch black. And it's a right faff and a chore to place all the lighting after the fact for the entire theme park. So now I kind of build a structure or a ride and then place all the lighting there and then. You can see on the Helion ring, I've got that little strip lighting, those fairy lights around the base. And, I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm lurching the camera around. You might have seen just for a second, I was trying some flat rides in that area there, but I'll address that next episode. And speaking of next episode, everything else that I'm going to... That's the end of this episode. So if you want to see more, you got to wait till next episode. I feel like I could have done... That phrase could have done with some tweaking, but regardless, we're going to press on. I'm going to let you watch a POV of the wooden coaster now, because I realise the scenery has changed, so I'll let you enjoy. And that is the break run, so I'll put my end screen up now. That's right, it's still the old style end screen for anyone that missed, the end of last episode. Basically, I felt bad about the fact that Patreon list was showing on these videos, because these videos are made so far in advance that the Patreon list wouldn't really accurately reflect my current list of patrons and channel members. So I'm just going to leave with the old style one, but that's it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.